Brown here with you on this
Merry
Thursday morning.
Christmas, Rob.
Yep, Merry Christmas. It is a great time of the year. Love the graphics. Christmas tree in the studio. Richard Petty in Ocala.
I feel like these look like the snowman, like from the cartoon.
Yeah.
Back in there, like the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon. You
Yeah.
see those? He's got those cool glasses.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I'm him.
The coach from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. All right. Knock it off.
He had a coach.
Everybody.
He did have a coach. Rudolph had a speed coach. He had one of those speed trainers.
Yeah, and he was with the whistle and the shirt that said coach on it. Hey,
Faster,
we got
light
a
him
great
up
one today.
again, Rudolph.
Coach Matt Dean coming in this morning, John Hartwell and Gary Harris. We're going to cover a lot today. We're going to start getting into more basketball. I love SEC and college basketball. Matt Dean, of course, coached for 30-something years in basketball, men's and women's. John Hartwell played college basketball, loves college basketball, and looking forward to really getting into it because you look at Florida and you look at Tennessee right now, number one in the country.
SEC is showing off right now.
Yeah, Auburn's got a good team.
Yeah.
Alabama, look at Arkansas with John Calipari. He's just going to create a lot of excitement regardless because he's John Calipari. And that's just how it goes.
Didn't we feel this way, though, Rob? At the beginning of last year, the SEC was super strong. We were having the same sort of dialogue as we bring in Matt Dean to the program. Mr. Matt Dean, welcome, sir. You're looking very snazzy this morning. And right behind you is your cohort, Mr. Hartwell. Welcome to the program.
And now John
Thanks,
did say he got his new Yeti Blue mic, but he hadn't hooked it up. It is a simple task, and we'll show you. You take that USB cord on the side of the laptop into the back of the microphone, and then the headphones with the
We'll get you next time. It's all right, Terry.
We'll get it next
He's
time.
excited. He just learned. He wants to share. It's okay. It's a very exciting thing.
I was in
Welcome,
Best
gentlemen.
Buy.
Morning, guys. How are y'all?
Good. I was in Best Buy Monday with some young kid. He's about to graduate in computer science from University of Memphis. And we were going through all this different equipment. Yeti and Rode rock the world of podcasting. And gentlemen, it's football season right now. We got a big story Brendan cued me in on before we went on the air. We're going to break.
Juicy tidbits I'm teasing you guys. This is a tease. I got some juicy coaching tidbits. Breaking news, national implications.
Yeah.
Very good source, and we'll get to it in a minute. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. So, look, right now there's a lot of people mad as hell about the way the playoff committee made their selections. But you know what? It is creating a firestorm of interest in college football. I mean, guys, people, it's not so much the teams that get in, it's also the teams that don't get in that everybody's talking about. What kind of effect is this going to have? Are we going to go to a super conference where we have a playoff for the top 64 teams, and then the other 70 teams have their own playoff? And it's going to be, as Jackie Sherrill says, just as important to those schools. So we're going somewhere. Talking Heads had it right. You may find yourself saying, how did I get here? Well, I'll tell you how we got here, because the damn NCAA, they didn't address the request and the needs of student athletes for decades. And am I correct? I'm going to defer to y'all in a sec about long-term care benefits and getting something. Look, childhood actors still get royalty payments from the TV shows they were on, guys. So if they would have addressed it and dealt with O'Bannon and other athletes, just dealt with them directly, we probably wouldn't be where we are now. How are we going to get out of it? We'll figure it out. But let's get started right now. I want to start with Matt and then go to John. Your takeaways from, you were up in Indianapolis last week. Yeah. The 12 teams that were selected. Life's not fair.
No, and good morning, guys. It's always good to be on with you guys. I was in Indianapolis. Was on the field after the game with my son and my wife and my other son, and it was a great experience. Oregon offensively clicked right now they have the best quarterback left in the playoff at Dylan Gabriel. He's a Heisman finalist, even though I think Travis Hunter's going to win the award. But I'm just going to be honest with you. I think we all knew that this first year, we talked about it week one, guys, there were going to need to be some tweaks. And one of the tweaks is going to have to be the seeding process. I have no problem with Boise State and Arizona State in the field. I think they got to be seeded accordingly. And then, you're always going to have a conversation. If you had 4, the conversation was 5 and 6. If you have 12, the conversation is 13 and 14. 2 trains of thought. There's been a lot of people talking about scheduling. Well, the SEC, because it's probably, without a question, the deepest league in the country, always has been, always will be, you're going to have some scheduling models where certain teams are going to be beneficial when you get away from divisions and other teams are not. And as much criticism as Illinois, as Penn State and Indiana are getting in, I look at Texas. Texas obviously passes the eye test to me. But tell me, guys, honestly, their best 2 games they've played are losses to Georgia. Okay? Who has Texas beat besides A&M? That really, when we talk about these other things and strength of record and strength of schedule. So now the reason I'm saying that is because Alabama goes into Oklahoma late in the season, a 3-touchdown favorite. All they had to do was win that football game, and they're in.
Yeah.
Heck, they may have been an 8-9 seed. They may even host of the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All they had to do was win. And not only did they lose, they lost badly, guys.
Yeah.
They looked terrible in that game. So should the SEC have had 4? On paper, yes, without question, because we see like Ole Miss, if they don't lose to Kentucky, they're hosting a game. If Alabama doesn't lose to Oklahoma, they're hosting a game. Heck, if those 2 losses don't occur, the SEC may have gotten 5. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's kind of freaking out because Bama didn't get in. The reality is they did it to themselves.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about non-conference schedule of who the other leagues are playing. Look at the SEC's non-con. Are you kidding me? Yeah. It's all relative. John, take over. I'm just talking to you.
No,
hey, right. Matt, you set the table greatly because, anybody that complains that, oh, my team should have gotten in, this team shouldn't have gotten in, it boils down to 3 letters. I'm going to keep it at the letters because I know we're on family programming. JFW, baby. JFW.
That's right.
The whole Alabama versus SMU argument. And yes, I know SMU lost the championship game. But, you got to look at the body of work. And, what happens, towards the end of the season matters a lot, just like it does in the selection Sunday for the NCAA basketball.
That's right.
Same deal. I want to bring up an interesting concept, though, that I think as we play out over the next, whatever it is, 38 days, 40 days between now and January 20th in Atlanta for the CFP game, is injuries and how key those can be to who advances to that championship game. You take a team, look at SMU. SMU played 12 regular season games, and I'm not saying, they're an odds-on favorite by any means, but I'm saying this could be an example. SMU plays 12 regular season games. They play a conference championship game. They don't get a bye, and rightfully so. I believe those seedings were correctly done. They would have to win 4 games. So in essence, they could play 17 games, and that's a bunch of games. And I'm telling you, as we go down through these last few weeks, and who plays at quarterback for Georgia, there are a lot of factors that involve injuries that are going to determine who is crowned CFP champion the evening of January 20th in Atlanta.
Yeah, you both nailed it. Just win, and it all takes care of itself.
Right.
You cannot be codependent on what happens to other people. That's like people I see at a game just waiting to hear the score of their rival and pray to God that they're getting beat. Worry about your own team. And the SEC, we mentioned this a minute ago about basketball. Brendan was right. Last year, at the beginning of the season, throughout the season, this is the best league and blah, blah, blah. No, it wasn't. It wasn't last year.
Right.
Probably the Big 12. Probably the Big 12 was. That's a league that's really, really, really good. So football wise, guys, we're sitting here talking about schedules and all, and I think the committee, their job is to select the 12 most deserving teams. Are we going to be inclusive? Give everybody a hug and a Capri Sun and a dang puppy, or we're going to put the hottest 12 teams? I mean, how do you think is the best way to do it? But I do think this. I think the weather is so overrated. I mean, guys play down here in the heat, and Southern teams will say, when this team comes in from Washington or Ohio to play in the South in September, they're going to wilt. Really? I hunt a lot up in South Dakota. I remember watching the Weather Channel one time up in Chamberlain, South Dakota. It was 114 degrees up there one time in July. And by the way, if you've ever walked in 10, 15 miles a day pheasant hunting, it's like the landscape of the moon. That's an overrated thing. The players are going to embrace the weather conditions, aren't they, Matt? They're going to love it. They're going to go crazy. They're going to love it. They're going to use it as an advantage from Tennessee or wherever. They don't care.
I would argue that Tennessee goes to Columbus for a night game, 28 degrees, maybe snow flurries. I heard a potential forecast last night. They have a great defensive line. They run the football. You know what that is? That's kind of football weather. I would argue, Rob, we've seen it even at Rhodes College. You get those early September games, and we bring Midwest teams down. They do wilt. But you know what? I think the Southern teams are just fine for the most part. Now, if you got like Buffalo, Lake Effect, it's 20-mile-an-hour wind. Wind affects the game more than cold, in my opinion. How you throw the ball, how you catch the ball, can you handle the ball? I really like Tennessee and Ohio State. I think they're going to go up there and out physical them. And I know a little bit about Ohio State because I follow the Big Ten. They're banged up at offensive line. Their quarterback did not play well in the biggest game of the season for them against Michigan. That would have probably got him in the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State's also very capable of running the field, but I think John makes the best point. You get teams now playing games 16, 17, whatever the number is. Yeah. It's not sustainable. It's from an injury standpoint. And I think Georgia's still the best team in college football. But how will they be for a full game without Carson Beck? How will that handle? I mean, I haven't heard the end. I'm guessing UCL, John, I'm guessing he's not going to be back for the quarterfinals. But, I mean, I think that's a huge thing. But at the end of the day, Georgia, and they just find ways to punch you in the gut. I mean, Texas has got – when you watch Texas, they're sexy, man. They got everything. And Georgia just says, we're going to take your will. We're gonna get after you. And, I think – the thing that's going to hurt Quinn Ewers the most in the NFL draft is the 2 games on tape against Georgia. And Georgia does that to everybody, except Haynes King of Georgia Tech had a pretty good game against him.
Yeah. And John,
I wanted to ask you guys about Georgia, though. But don't you guys feel like a little bit that Georgia, what you said, Matt, it's like they break your will. I really feel like Kirby planned better this season than last season. Not that he's playing possum, but I think he was smarter this year and thought about the end of the year. John?
I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, they don't have – I mean, they've got really good players and personnel, don't get me wrong, but they may not have the marquee couple of the marquee guys that they had last year. But I think you're right. I think he's been very, very methodical about his game plans and knowing that, and again, this dynamic has totally changed where it used to be, you want to peak, to win your conference towards the end of November, the beginning of December, and then, the bowl game or the national championship game is kind of a reward at the end. Now it's a much longer process, and you don't want to peak, and it's crazy to say this about college football. You don't want to peak till early to mid-January now. So the ability to get your team to do that, and if you think about it, most of these teams, when they start fall camp somewhere around August 1, They've been going through most of the summer. Most of them give the guys, a week to 10 days off the end of July. But you grind it from August 1 through the middle of January without really a break.
Yeah.
I mean, that's grueling. And, to be able to pace your guys, both from a practice standpoint, from a number of reps, all of those things is going to play into this. And, I think that, plays into Kirby's hands. And, I think he is getting some of the due respect. Always been a really good football coach, but everybody talked about, Saban is, he's the calculated, smart guy who plans things out. Don't sell Kirby smart short in
that's right.
Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
That's a tongue twister.
And again, he learned from the master.
Yeah, he did. And what I see with Kirby Smart is his players love him, and those players in that locker room love each other, and they're tight. And he pushes them really hard. And Texas, Matt's right about Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers, he's a fine young man, but he has missed 7 or 8 games in the last 3 years because he's banged up. And, I look at other quarterbacks. They're out there every morning for work, 30 minutes early. They're opening the door for the security guard. I think I'm already predicting Tennessee wins in Columbus 24-14. Color this one checkerboard orange and white. I think Tennessee goes up. Defense always travels. Running game. They've got 3 good running backs. Dylan Sampson out of Baton Rouge, one of the best. Trevor Etienne at Georgia, really strong. Matt,
I felt like ETN was one of those really smart things. In a lot of ways, he managed that pretty well.
Yeah.
And
how good was he, Brendan?
Well, listen, look, when you're Georgia, you can have a secret weapon and tuck him in your back pocket and bring him out, and he plays like that. And he did, he really was. Watching him play last game was just watching him play at Florida. He is a force when he decides to be a force, and I think Kirby managed his personality and what he was doing, and it worked out for the best. Now he's got, I think. I picked Georgia at the beginning of the year because of Kirby Smart, because I think he learned from last year, and I think he knew what he was doing, and I think he's ready for this time. He wasn't going to let history repeat itself, in my opinion. And I think he's just he got a lot more strategy this year than I think last year, and I think that's what makes him exceptional. And I think ETN is. I think his stock will go up. I mean, if Georgia wins the Natty and ETN blows up the playoffs, I mean, looks like he made a good move, right?
Well, and he may win the national championship this year at Georgia. I picked Georgia.
They're going to win. I think Texas Georgia is a bunch of whiners. I'm tired. I grew up in Colorado, listening to Texas Longhorn fans my whole life. Welcome to the SEC, Longhorns.
Well,
welcome to the SEC.
The thing about Georgia is that I picked them to play Ole Miss for the SEC championship, but I picked Georgia. Matt, yesterday, Jake Wimberly was on from Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah. He's had Georgia to play Oregon. And I'm like, that's who I picked. I'm like, that's who's going to play. And I picked Georgia to win. But Georgia might win the national championship without having maybe one player on the first team All-SEC or even All-American. This is the best coaching job Kirby Smart has ever done in his coaching life. And I'm going to say it 5 times real fast. Don't sell Sherby Cart Smart.
Hey,
that was beautiful, John.
Sherby Smart.
Brendan, you said it first.
Hey, at least I didn't say he's sharp.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's my middle name, by the way, is Sharp. So it's Sherby Smart short.
Man, that's a tough one.
Sherby Sharp.
Guys, one thing I was going to add in here too that I think is worth looking at is the transfer portal, and I know we get to that every time.
You can't avoid it.
The transfer portal, which opened this past Monday on the 9th, stays open until December 28th.
No doubt.
There will still be 8 teams vying for a national championship when that portal closes.
Yeah.
I promise you, come down the stretch in that last handful of days, there are going to be some guys who may not be first-team guys. There probably will be a handful but not first team guys on some of those 8 teams that put their name in the portal who may have not thought they were going to play much, but going back to the injury thing, they get into a game and all of a sudden the first guy goes down.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have a guy in the portal who's going to play a significant role in trying to win, quarterfinal or semifinal CFP games.
John, that is a great point. And you got to wonder, Matt, you got to be able to trust people. Man, people that I work with, if I turn in a portfolio to an analyst, some eggheads to break that thing down at a firm in New York or whatever, I better trust that they're not going to be shopping that out to my competition. That's what's going on in college sports. You've got to trust the people around you.
Well, I can tell you just from a program I know a little bit about. I know Oregon was working, John, exactly what you said on their bye week, the week before the Washington game, portable management. They were meeting with their players, talking about, student athlete satisfaction at the current institution of the number 1 team in the country. And then they've already had 3 guys enter the portal, John, since they've won the Big Ten championship. So, but from a transparency side of things, John, I think it was a mutual parting, and I think Dan Lanning learned from 2 of the best to ever do it, and from Kirby and from Nick. And Brendan, back to your point, I'll tell you when I saw Kirby start wheels turning, the halftime interview when Alabama dominated the first half of that game. You go back, a lot of coaches got their butt kicked in the first half and be a little rattled. Kirby almost liked it. He was like, now I'm thinking, now I got some stuff for guys that'll actually listen to me, right? They're going to listen to me more. And then as the season progressed, I even saw them get so much better in all 3 phases of the game. And I'll even say this to you, okay? John's a basketball guy, Division I player. I was a Division I manager. But, basketball coaches are really known for time management and special situations. Yeah. Do you think maybe someone in the booth would have told Sark when Beck came back in the game, hey, let's call a freaking timeout because we know this guy can't throw because he hadn't played the last 2 quarters, and the other guy just had his head taken off. I mean, and I know that may be kind of like, what are we doing this for? But I'm like, that's coaching. And the fact that there's Dan Mullen, by the way, who's
I wanted to break in. It's official, and we had this story earlier, so we teased it. But 8 minutes ago, it was announced. CBS Sports has announced, and we announced actually before them. UNLV has now hired Dan Mullen as their head coach. So here we go. The parody has begun. UNLV, which I've covered this team for many years, has now got Dan Mullen. Guys,
that's awesome.
What do you think? John, let's go with you first and then work it down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a heck of an offensive mind. They've got that program going there. The recruiting opportunity at UNLV is, you play in an NFL stadium, a state-of-the-art, one of the 2 or 3 best stadiums in the country. You've got a couple of big donors helping bankroll that program. So I think UNLV has a tremendous opportunity to continue its upward climb. Barry Odom did an unbelievable job there. I think Coach Mullen will continue that. Hey, guys, I hate to go. I got to run here in just a second. I just saw a question pop up, though, about Ahmad Hardy, our running back, who was a first-team freshman All-American, finished number 9 in rushing in the country in yards. Yes, he is in the portal. I have to follow up on what Matt said there because the folks in Eugene have reached out. He was in Oxford yesterday. He's going to Tempe this weekend. So, yeah, there is a lot of interest in Ahmad Hardy. Tremendous young man. You'd like to say, hey, I'd love to see him be a Warhawk for us for another year. But, hey, in today's world, you've got to use that as a recruiting tool for the next guy.
Yeah,
and say, hey, here's an offense where you have the opportunity to run for 1,200 yards. Look what our guy just did. So, it's that's the world we live in now. So you either embrace it and find a way to be successful in it, or refuse to acknowledge it and be eliminated.
That is what will happen if you don't.
But John,
well, guys, hey, got to run, but as always, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll see you next Thursday, John. Thank you. I'll talk to you tonight. All right. I want to ask you, Dan Mullen to UNLV, Allegiant Stadium, big time deal. Brendan, you know Las Vegas. I've got.
Oh, I listen. I covered this. I have covered. I do. First of all, I know a little bit about Vegas, but second of all, I've grown up in Colorado. I worked these games. These were the games I cut my teeth on. I would go to these games because these weren't big ball games. I have sat hours on that field at UNLV, which is a cool campus, by the way. It's got the planes flying overhead. It's all crazy. It is I'm excited actually because we're about to see the college football that I actually grew up watching. And the rest of the country you didn't grow up watching Arizona football. You didn't grow up, watching I grew up in the Mountain West, man. I grew up watching Air Force, Colorado, the McCarthy years, Nebraska, the Great Osborne years. We're about to see a whole breadth of that now because of the Dan Mullins at UNLV, because of this parity. I'm excited for this hire. I like Dan Mullen, and I think this is going to be exciting for college football.
Yeah, Matt, you travel a lot. I do. Brendan has. Paul Wickenheiser, the Burgermeister, my friend, is living out in Reno now from Memphis. Watches the show every day. Big Georgia fanatic. Actually, he's getting a box at the Sugar Bowl, and he's looking for people to. It's 24 seats, and they're just buying into it. But he got out there, and his son Matthew grew up a Georgia Bulldog from birth. Ended up going to Utah State, got out there. It's like, I can't leave this part of the country, man. They love it. But Brendan, let's go back, and we're all, pretty close in age. When we were growing up, college football in the 70s was pretty much of a regional game. You had as Keith Donovan, the ESPN college football historian calls it, we had the football TV aristocracy. You had about 10 teams that were on more than anybody. You couldn't be on more than 5 times in a 2-year period. But he's right. Frank Cush was at Arizona State in the 70s, and he got in trouble for yelling at a kid or something. And I think it's cool what Brendan said. I like college football. I'm partial to the SEC, obviously, but we are making this more of a national game than I can ever remember. And it's happening for a lot of reasons, whether we like it or not. And the guy that used to be a starter or a number 2 or 3 on the depth chart at an SEC school, especially the powerful schools, he's now a starter at UNLV or Indiana, okay? Or Tulane. You better watch out because the game is shifting, and it's different than it used to be. Get your head out of the sand.
And the conversations, Matt, and Rob, I mean, I grew up, we didn't talk about going, and I'm being, fun, tongue in cheek here, but we didn't talk about going to Auburn or whatever because the girls were cute or whatever. We talked about going to ASU. We talked about how cool that campus was. We talked about going out and going to UT back then and see it because I grew up rolling around those campuses, and especially even Nebraska. Go to Lincoln, Nebraska. You want to see a fan base Lincoln, Nebraska, all by themselves, but they're awesome.
They're incredible
people. Nebraskans are probably some of the most hospitable people. That and Iowans. Really some of the most wonderful human beings in the world. Yeah. And it's so fun to go watch a game there. And I think it's going to be fun to watch guys stay home now, right? Yeah. They can play in front of their friends and family. And I think it's going to add to the culture because we're going to get more of it. So I'm excited. And it looks like we've got Gary Harris checking in. If you don't mind, Rob, I'll just pop
let's bring in Gary Harris. I was about to say, let's go to Dan Mullen, Matt.
We'll bring in Dan Mullen really fast. But it's Gary Harris. It's even better.
Gary Harris, folks, you know him, WVUA TV 23 sports director. Great, one of the best in the business. Also Tide 100.9. And he and Rodney Orr, who was on the show Tuesday with us, Tider Insider TV. Check it out Tuesday nights at 6:30. Gary, Brendan said this to me early this morning before it was public, the story about Dan Mullen going to UNLV, that would happen. So there's movement in the aisles in college football. But let's start in Tuscaloosa and get the room temperature. And also, we're going to talk some basketball today, too, because basketball is a pretty big deal in the state of Alabama. Who would have ever thought the first 12-team playoff, Gary, there'd be two teams from the state of Indiana, and neither of the two football teams, Auburn or Alabama, would be in that playoff. But that's the world we live in.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me going into the season that you'd have SMU and Indiana and Boise State and Arizona State and Alabama wouldn't be in it, I would have been, I would have been like, what are you talking about? But, it didn't happen. I think that there's disappointment here on a couple levels. First of all, there's disappointment that Alabama didn't get in, because I think the feeling here was that the way the season played out, even at 9-3, that Alabama was deserving of a spot. And, disappointing that it turned out the way it did. At the same time, I do think there is an acknowledgement that, you lose at Vanderbilt as a number one team in the country, and you lose late in the season to an average Oklahoma team. Although I want to put that in context a little bit. There's programs, Oklahoma's like an Alabama or a Michigan or Ohio State or Notre Dame or Texas, Georgia. They're a true blue blood program, and regardless of their record, when they have a bye week and they have a game of that significance against a team of Alabama significance, it's just like if you roll into Tuscaloosa, even if Alabama's got 4 or 5 losses, which hasn't happened in a long time, but even in those years that they did, you never took anything for granted. So I want to give Oklahoma a lot of credit for the way they played there. I still think the loss that is, the one that's going to stick with Alabama people is losing in Nashville. I mean, despite the, Dago Pavia being a really good player and them having a better team than they've normally had, still, you hadn't lost to that team in 40 years. You're number one in the country, and that one will sting for a while. But I think too, on a bigger picture level, this is a loss for the SEC. And I understand, Rob, that it's SEC, and it just means more until it's Alabama. And there's a lot of people are giddy and excited that Alabama didn't get in. But it's bad for the SEC. I mean, when you look at the fact that 4 teams from the Big Ten got in and 2 from the ACC, which I hate, a lot of people are going to be ticked off when I say this. I think that's probably a one-bid league in my opinion. But for the SEC not to get 4 teams in, that's a fail. And it does give the Big Ten a better chance to win the national championship. Just the odds alone, they've got an extra team. So I don't think anybody's crying in their soup here. At the same time, there is disappointment, and I do think that it turns up the pressure on Kalen DeBoer going into next year in regard to what he needs to get accomplished. And I think they need to win this bowl game too. I think that because it's a rematch against Michigan, even though this Michigan team has 5 losses, they proved what they're capable of when they went into the horseshoe and beat Ohio State. So that ReliaQuest Bowl on New Year's Eve, I think it's a big game. Also, Alabama's won 10 or more games every season. The last time they didn't win 10 or more games was way back in 2007. That's quite an impressive streak. And DeBoer, he's already had some dubious distinctions this year. Losing to Vanderbilt, losing 3 games in the regular season, losing 3 times as a team ranked in the top 10. I don't think he wants to be, in his first year, snap that 10-game win streak. So there's still a lot to play for Alabama.
Well, you broke the streak that Florida State set from 87 to 2000 when they never finished outside of the top 5 in a season. I'm with you. I am not one of these people that cheers. I'm an SEC guy.
I know you're not.
But I think people that
do.
A
lot of them do.
Yeah, there are a lot of them that do that. It's kind of like they're waiting for a car wreck so they can go look. I've seen enough of those. My 2 years as a TV reporter, I've got all that I can stand. But you're talking about the brand, and you go back to last year, Matt Dean, when Florida State did not get into the playoffs. It was weird. Georgia was 1. Bama beat them. Bama beat you. Wasn't like you lost to Northern Illinois, and you fall from 1 to 6. That was kind of crazy. But Matt, and I got to agree with Brendan, by the way. I've hunted in Iowa a lot. Been to Iowa. Their people up there are just God. They're angels. They're incredible. And those people up there love college football and wrestling. Not wrestling, but wrestling. But Matt, talk about address what
Well, I
Gary
just threw up,
said,
man.
'cause
I
he
just
nailed
threw
it.
up there too. The 2025 conference opponents and the schedules were out yesterday. I actually wanted to ask Gary about what he thought about Alabama's 2025 schedule. If you had a chance to peek at it,
I have, had it on my sportscast last night at 10:00. Obviously, that was my lead story.
Sure.
Obviously in the SEC, as we all know, it just flips. You have the same 8 opponents. It's just the ones that you played at home this season, you'll play on the road next season. The ones you played on the road, you'll play at home. But out of conference to open up at Florida State, and I know a lot of people are saying, my gosh, Florida State's awful. But we know it's a year-to-year deal now in college football. It's a year-to-year endeavor, and they've got Gus Malzahn coming in as their offensive coordinator. So I suspect they'll have a lot of energy and they'll have a lot of excitement just to put 2024 in their rearview mirror and to be able to open up for them at Doak Campbell Stadium against Alabama. They'll be excited and ready to go. That's a tough opening game. That's not just as because of you're playing a traditional opponent that, regardless of what happened this year, that's a strong team, but you're playing them in a true road game. You're playing them there. And then, of course, Wisconsin makes its return trip to Tuscaloosa. So out of the 4 non-conference games, you're playing a Big Ten team and an ACC team.
Yeah.
And then obviously I think the schedule in the SEC is beneficial for Alabama to be able to get LSU at home, Tennessee at home, and Oklahoma at home. But you do have to go to Auburn. It's the flip side of for the Iron Bowl to be at Jordan-Hare. So obviously at the end of the year, that'll be a big game. I think it's a tough schedule. Again, when you have 16 teams and you only play 8 conference games, the schedules, as we saw this year with Texas and Georgia, they're not going to be equal. But I think Alabama, if you ask me, I would say that's probably looking to get. You got to go to Missouri. I think you got to go to South Carolina.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a top 5 schedule in the SEC as far as difficulty, in my opinion.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah,
I always agree with Gary. And one of the things I was thinking about Gary last week, we talked before you got on about the game against Oklahoma, and obviously the implications where it didn't play out in your favor. Obviously, we know that. But what's interesting to me, Ohio State's a 3-touchdown favorite at home against Michigan. In the game, Ryan Day really has to win for many reasons. And they score 10 points, they get beat, and they go from 2 to 6. Now, I mean, okay, maybe they shouldn't have went from 2 to 12, but I thought in a world we live in, Bama got punished more. I mean, you look at Bama, they have the best win, I think, in the whole year against Georgia. If you want to say right now, the SEC champion, Bama beat. The hottest team in the country, though, they hung on, they beat South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State beat Penn State on the road 23-17. Other than that, go look at the resume. I can show it to you. There's nothing special on Ohio State's winning track. And actually, Coach Saban on game day was kind of alluding to that. We get caught up in the losses. Let's look at the wins. And that's where I think Bama had a pretty tough draw this year. And you're right, Gary, if you don't lose at Vandy, you're obviously in. But I made the point earlier, if you guys have one less loss and Ole Miss doesn't lose to Kentucky, I think the SEC would have got 5 this year.
Yeah, probably would have.
I don't think it's, it's that far away from saying from here on out. I think the SEC is going to figure out this new schedule dynamic. And obviously one of the things, from my perspective as a longtime follower of the Big Ten, Indiana just got one of the most favorable schedules in the country, a new head coach. They had a good year in the transfer portal. They had a quarterback. And you look at Indiana's resume, they beat Michigan 20-15. Other than that, no special wins, and they lost at Ohio State by 3 touchdowns. Albeit the last one was a 1-yard sneak when everyone thought they were in victory formation. Different conversation. But I'm really curious about how this plays out because there's going to be a tweak, Gary. And my initial thoughts is, yes, okay, let's take Boise State and Arizona State. They won their conference, they're in. But we got to do some of the seeding. I mean, I don't like the way the seeding is played out. Those 2 teams do not deserve buys. And, we'll see how it goes out. But I think next year the SEC will be 4 or 5, and we'll put some of the stuff to rest.
Yeah, I think on the seeding too, I'm with you, Matt. I think that I don't have any problem with the bye as much as I do the seeding and to kind of predetermine who's going to be in those slots. That's something they've got to look at. I mean, you've got to get the 12 teams, and then you got to seed based on, do they deserve to be up there? And that's I think the like you're talking about. That's where we're going with, I think the assumption has been, well, if you win your conference championship, you deserve the bye. Well, not necessarily.
Right.
And you have to look at the 12 teams, and I hope we go ahead and get to 16, because I don't like the byes. I mean,
Right.
I think once you get to a playoff, it should, everybody should play. And I think that's where we're headed. But for the SEC in this first year, it's disappointing, I think, and I'm not going to, I think I've said on my show that it's a fail for Greg Sankey, and that's probably a little strong. But I do think, to be honest with you guys, that if you had said going into the season that this is the way the playoff was going to be laid out, I think the assumption would have been from the conference office that a minimum of 4 teams, like we were talking about. And if the Big Ten got 4, doggone right, the SEC is going to get 4. So for the SEC to get beat out of a team, if you want to look at it like that, is disappointing. And give SMU credit. I mean, I don't think anybody's trying to disparage SMU, but it is funny because the SEC is kind of the big bully on the block, and I think Alabama is the biggest bully in the bully conference. There's a lot of, I heard it Saturday night when there was some thought process that SMU might not get in if they lost to Clemson. Oh, poor SMU. And, well, what about poor Georgia last year when they'd won 29 in a row and got beat by Alabama in the conference championship game? They didn't get to go to the playoff, and I understand it was a 14 playoff. Florida State didn't get to go, and they were undefeated. I mean, it's one of these things where everyone says Alabama had a chance to play their way in if they beat Oklahoma. Well, SMU had a chance to play their way in if they beat Clemson. And, I know Clemson kind of became a bid stealer, but and I think we saw that game play out. I think we all felt like Saturday night that SMU was going to the playoff. And then Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy went on a 5-minute diatribe after the game as to why SMU deserved to be in and Alabama didn't. And I'm not one of these people. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I've had some people tell me, well, that committee doesn't pay any attention to I don't believe that. They know what's being said. They know the temperature, room temperature. They understand that it's not easy, but they know where they're going to take most of the heat. And I just think that Saturday night they made a decision. Man, we're not dealing with this year. We're putting SMU in.
That's right.
Listen, I based on Gary, and I've heard from. I mean, I'm into the AI thing. In sports, and to the point we're going to launch an AI in sports podcast here soon. But no, truly we are.
We really are.
We really
got
are.
Some very smart people doing it with us.
I've got, from a very credible source that they, AI is very heavily involved in all of this, all of what we see right now, because there's guys out there running the old BCS algorithm on this, and they're on Twitter and they're posting about it, right? And it's literally exactly, sort of. I think Alabama makes it in, but there's not like much disparaging. It really sort of harkens to the fact we could. It's very algorithmic. If you look at the other algorithm and you apply that to this particular story, it kind of comes out the same. So I really don't feel like these pictures of these men and women are in a room. I don't buy it, and I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but I know they're relying heavily on what comes out because nobody wants to be wrong, right?
Yeah. No, they don't. And I'll tell you something. They show those photos of the committee in the room. It's like that photo when we allegedly killed Osama bin Laden, and everybody's like this, in the Situation Room. The AI people that we did meet, Gary, out in Dallas at Media Days, I went back and followed up with one of them in this think tank at Auburn. And these people are on another level. Brendan is a genius when it comes to this stuff.
It'll change everything. Well, you have biometric readouts and guys are getting full, like real-time biometric readouts of where are they gassed? Are they not gassed?
That's where we're going. Yeah.
That's where we're headed. They're already testing all this stuff. Yeah. And then you've got AI that's just grinding out other defenses. Where are the holes? What's happening? And then they're adding that biometric into it at the same time. This is all real-time computing that's going to come in on this quantum computing level. And where is all of this being developed? College campuses. Yeah. All of this stuff is happening on college. Auburn, Florida, SEC schools are leading the way. Yeah. And we are seeing this. I mean, look, the ESPN and everyone else, they're all doubling down on it because they're all communicating, because it's now going to be like, well, is your data as a person public domain? I'm tracking my own self and my own, stats and all this stuff. It becomes a nightmare as far as what we're dealing with. And then we're going to see this in the next 5 years. All of this happening in the next 5 years.
I agree, Gary. And I'll say this to everybody watching. Georgia got screwed sideways last year. You lose to Alabama. It's not like, again, they go from 1 to 6, but that started a domino effect. When Florida State didn't get in, it was because the ACC was perceived as not a great league. And that's why Gary's right in his point, and I'm going to defend you on this one, is Bama being out, the SEC, this conference, there's a lot of benefit to being in a conference with an Alabama. I mean, you may say, well, what are you talking about? Well, it gets eyes. They're like, if you beat Alabama and you're 10-2, and there's another team that's 10-2 from another league, you're getting into the playoff. But 12, it isn't going to work. It's like in baseball. Remember the Braves, not this past season, but the year before, the best team in baseball. They had to sit a week, and the Phillies' bats were hot. The Braves cooled down, and Billy Roberts, who's on the show with us a lot, is the Bravesologist, as is Frank Duffy and everybody I know that follows the Braves. But that killed them. And I think we got to be careful of that. But Florida State, you don't know, Gary, what they're going to be like. But you're going to Doak S. Campbell Stadium, and that's going to be. They are right now every morning at 5 when they're getting up. They're going, we're opening with Bama. That's all they're thinking.
Yeah,
right.
you don't know what they're going to be like, but you know what? You don't really know what Alabama's going to be like, or it's hard to tell now what any team is going to be like. That's where we're at. And, we're talking about AI and artificial intelligence, and this is real life here with football, but it's hard. It's hard to gauge what these teams are going to look like. I mean, with where we're at right now and how the rosters are going to flip over, you could be a good team this year and a bad team next year, or you could come out of nowhere like Indiana did. And Matt was talking about Indiana, and they did have the benefit of a schedule that was laid out beautifully for them, but they took advantage of it. And to have a first-year head coach come into a program that has been losing on a regular basis and bring in a lot of transfers, many from the school, James Madison, that he came from, and to go 11-1, it's remarkable. And you would not have seen that even 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, when building a team was more through recruiting and development, and you couldn't just go purge a roster. But now you can. So every year is going to be different, and it's going to be the coaching staffs that can manage the change and
Correct.
Put the right pieces together. They're going to have the best teams. And so next year, I don't know what it's going to look like for anybody. So yeah, that first game for Alabama is a tricky game. I do believe that.
Yeah, and if you start thinking, Roman Harper, we have him on the show a good bit, and he and Cole Kubelik, I think they have the best show on the SEC network, Read and React. And guys, they talked about logo fever. And we said this over and over going into the season. I said, you're looking at these teams, not all of them are going to be as good as you think they are. Some of them that you don't think are going to be better than expected. But it's a 12-chapter book, Matt, and everybody gets caught up in, oh, my God, look who we got to play. Just play them one. It's an old axiom, but it's true, isn't it? You've coached for 30-something years, Matt. If you told your players, all right, we're playing Alabama tonight, but in 3 weeks we've got Duke. Let's focus on Duke. You're probably going to lose to Alabama tonight.
I would just hope the check's big enough and we get avoided injury. That's what I would hope. But anyway,
there you go.
To be honest with you, what's really unique is this started, I think, last year a little bit when Florida State got left out. And we saw how good Georgia's culture was. They went from 1 to 5 or 6, whatever. Six. And then that bowl game, they just decimated. And Florida State's been on a spiral since that bowl game. They had a horrible year.
They have.
And I just think Georgia, I don't know the metrics on this, but had to have. Did they have the toughest SEC schedule if you look at everybody they played? I mean, they've had some great wins. But
this year, there's no doubt about it. They did. I mean,
so you look at – and you look at Georgia, they're a solid 2 seed. I'll tell you one thing, Gary. My family and I made the trip to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game, so we're on the field afterwards, and it was really cool. But I also thought the very first game my son was a part of the Oregon staff was when we went to Atlanta and Georgia beat us like 49-3. I needed a calculator to add up their points. And if somehow Georgia and Oregon would end up in the final, there's a long way to get to that, right? But they're on the other side of the bracket, and it goes back to Atlanta. I'm not saying Oregon won that football game, but the fact that Dan Lanning was a DC on Kirby's last national champion, it would be a cool story. And it'd be really interesting to see how far Oregon has come, because I think right now Oregon has the best quarterback left in the field. Dylan Gabriel, he'll probably be runner-up or third place overall in the Heisman voting, I'm guessing. But, man, he's had a wonderful year. And it just goes to show you, Oklahoma has a great defense still. But you take away that quarterback, man, it's everything in college, in pro football too, for that matter.
Gary, I got to ask you, what's going to happen with Jalen Milroe? I know there's all kind of opinions on him leaving, coming back, going to the portal. What do you want to happen?
Well, I mean, I want to happen what he thinks is best for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Jalen Milroe fan. I'm a little miffed at the number of Alabama fans who have disparaged him and, he needs to go and, we'll be better with that. Be careful what you wish for. I mean, he's a dynamic player, and, we'll see next year. If he's not here, my feeling is, Rob, that this is just my opinion. I do not know. I think that he probably will look heavily at going into the draft. I think with his body of work and where we're at right now in the NFL with dual threat quarterbacks, right, I don't know that coming back to college is going to help him that much. I mean, he's got 2 years as a starter at the highest level. But then again, he's making a lot of NIL money, and he may want to, give that another crack here or somewhere else. So I can't answer that question because I don't know. But, my feeling is, just my gut feeling is that he won't be at Alabama next year, but we will see.
Yeah. Whatever we hear about him, I do know this from a very good source that he has been very helpful with his teammates on the Alabama team, some that don't get that much NIL. I heard he's done some pretty damn good things,
Yes.
and I'm not making this up. And that he didn't have to do that. So whatever you want to say, Gary, the temperature. You and Rodney like nobody. They don't need a weatherman. They got y'all.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't get it when people, particularly Alabama fans, have disparaged him the way they have. I mean, I think he's a dynamic player. He took Alabama to the SEC championship last year and to overtime in the college football playoff, semifinal at the Rose Bowl against Michigan, and came back this year, and they did not reach the preseason expectations for this team. But he played hurt. I know that. He played through some pain. He did not have a good game against Oklahoma. In fact, I think that's probably the worst game of his career, but he bounced back and played a strong Iron Bowl. Yeah. So I think he's been a really good quarterback. He just won the William Campbell Trophy, which is one of the most prestigious awards in college football for his character and for his play on the field and for his academic status off the field. He's going to get his master's in sports management this weekend. So I think he's been exceptional for Alabama and for college football, and I wish him the best. And disappointed that some fans don't seem to understand, what a dynamic player he is.
What matters is that you said what you just said, because that carries a ton of weight, Gary. Well, and you're because I got mad at him last year after the Texas game. I heard, whatever. But you know what? I do know a little about him from some people in Tuscaloosa, and they said he's actually a very generous guy and does a lot of stuff off people don't know about.
Well, I think
and know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the whole length thing, which has got under people's skin a little bit. I think, like you said, I think that was, he and Terry and Arnold put that together, not just for themselves, but like you said, for all the players on the team to benefit. They've got things in place where, everybody gets a little piece of the pie. So I do think he's very conscious of his teammates. Hey, I got to go, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, Merry Christmas. Gary. We'll see you next week. Thank
Merry
you
Christmas,
as always.
You too,
I'll be listening to his show. I listen to his show after my show. I love it. Tide 100.9. You know what, Matt? That's the thing. God, we get nasty. But anyway, let me say something about our sponsors. Winter Timber Outdoors, Athens, Alabama, located right next to Huntsville. They're going to expand throughout the Southeastern Conference footprint, all right? That's their plan. They broke ground 3 weeks ago in Auburn on a new store, expected opening in June. Could be May, weather permitting. Inside that store, you've got a competent, trained staff. They know the shooting sports, man. Duck hunting, turkey hunting, quail hunting, pheasant hunting, grouse hunting, big game hunting, elk hunting, moose hunting, obviously deer hunting. You want to make a trip out west, they can outfit you with everything you need. Look, it's duck season right now. They've got everything imaginable. They're a big Sitka dealer, okay? They've got duck camp. They've got Dixie decoys. They got deer stands. They got all your food for your food plots. And look at that QR code. Rete Masimara, GPS, buy one, get one. Click on that with your phone. Call them up. Let them know you heard about it on Sideline. Sellers Rawson, one of our viewers, told me he stopped in there. He said, God, that store is awesome. He's down there. That's in his sales territory. Ray Mooring went in there last week. Order, let them know you heard about them on Sidelines. They're going to be big. They're looking to expand in all the SEC towns. Everything you need for the shooting sports, gear from head to toe, winter timber outdoors. And also, let me say something about another one of our sponsors, LandersFordMemphis.com, the number one Ford dealership in the Mid-South. And they are open Monday through Saturday. The service department is unique. 7 a.m., they open the doors. They go till 6 p.m. They will pick you up at your house, at your office, and provide you with transportation so you don't have to bother Cousin Eddie to give you a ride after work and get caught in rush hour traffic in Memphis, because that could be a multi-hour ordeal. The people there, they're great. They've been in the business a long time, not because they're lucky. It's because they're exceptional. Great service. Brad Bellamy, the general manager, our good friend, will be on with us tomorrow. Loves to help talk college football. They got a $500 off for SEC Sidelines audience. Again, you don't become the number one Ford dealership in the South, in the Mid-South, by accident. Again, go out there, all the cars, trucks, SUVs, a huge inventory, and they're all over the Mid-South. Houston High School, Collierville High School, St. Jude, presenting sponsor of the Touchdown Club. They're involved in so many good projects and causes in the Mid-South. It make you proud to drive off the lot in a brand new vehicle. And they're right down the street from another one of our sponsors, Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Check out Brendan's hat. And I'm wearing, this is a Barber quarter zip sweater that I'm wearing right here. They are Barber.
Yeah, but Rob, look at me because I'm prettier. So like, look at my hat. Yeah, Rob,
I like that hat.
Rob, no one cares what you're wearing. Okay. I take pictures of my hat. Okay. My hat's cool, and I got it from Hewlett. I have two of them. I feel like I need a third. I don't know. I feel like I want to get something a little. I got the velvet, a velvet one. I got the straw hat. I feel like I need a little smaller, like a sport. Is there like a sport hat? You know, that's not like Matthew McConaughey stupid, but like cool, like way cooler.
I'll look out there because they're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6
Can we get
p.m.
like SEC Sidelines, maybe? Like
we
saw that. Remember, Rob, at the SEC media days, those gals were making all the logos.
Oh yeah, they were making those gals. They were exceptional gals. They were wonderful gals. I loved them.
Yeah, but they were great gals.
Hewlett and Dunn, guys, they've got, Filson luggage. They've got awesome boot collection. There's like over 7,000 pairs of boots for men and women.
I need boots.
I got to get you some boots because they've got them made out of everything you can make a pair of boots out of. I'll just say that. They're open during Christmas, Sundays, noon till 5. So after church, go out there and go shopping at Hewlett and Dunn and get you a meal on the square. A lot of great restaurants out there. Raven Carpenter. Hey, guys, if you want to find something for your wife or your girlfriend or for your daughter, a Christmas gift, just call out there and say, Rob Brown said to ask for Raven Carpenter. She gets my wife squared away. I got Audrey great birthday gift last week. I know Barber, they've got this short cropped woman's jacket. Oh my God, man. She loves it. She even made me dinner that night. But they've got great looking women's clothing. Look at all the stuff they've got out there. They're constantly updating the website. You will love yourself. And the people that you give the gifts will love you even more. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville. We live in Memphis, in the Mid-South. Go in there personally and see it. If you call, ask for Charles Hall, Raven JM, they will walk you through. They got great selection. All of our sponsors, you can find them on sidelines.live. I love this guy, Blind Squirrel Sports. I think we're going to need to bring him on because he is a rapid fire guy. Matt, Brendan and I, the big story, and give credit to Brendan.
All right, Mr. Baseman. Yeah, buddy. McConaughey, he didn't look all right when he walked into that vomitory.
It's Mr. Bassman. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I went to a cool concert Friday night and was right up by the stage in my friend's suite. Billy Strings.
Were you drinking that night, Rob? Because you were sending me a lot of video.
Well, we were having
I kind of feel like you were drunk dialing me a little bit.
Well, one of my son's friends was up there getting me kept going, come on, Mr. Brown, you want to go shotgun another beer? I said, okay.
Oh my God.
Shotgun.
Rob needs a TV crew.
Yeah, but we were Billy Strings, guys. It's a combination of the Widespread Panic, the Grateful Dead, and a bluegrass and country band. This guy once played a guitar 24 hours straight without taking a break. I don't know what he was on when he did it, but he did it.
Nothing.
And somebody put it out there on public purview, and he got like 95 million views. And they played Friday and Saturday night at the FedEx Forum in Memphis. That was awesome. But guys, we're gonna wrap it up here in a minute. Matt, again, kudos, greater kudu. I do have some boots made out of greater kudu. Right. I got it Hewlett done. But I think about Iowa, the people out there. They love college football. What Brendan said is true. And John Hartwell knows the Mountain West. I think we're making college football. We don't realize it. We're making it as popular as March Madness did after Larry Bird and Magic Johnson in March of 1979. That's what's happening in football. If we didn't have this going on and we just kept it like it was with NIL and the portal being what they are, I think we'd be gasping for air. Matt, agree or disagree? And then I'll throw it to Brendan.
Well, I'll say this. I'm really excited about the Boise State story this year with Ashton Genzy having the shot at the Heisman. Cam Scadaboo, the running back from Arizona State. Brendan, you mentioned ASU. What a fabulous place. I'm really happy for Kenny Dillingham and them having the chance to compete in the football.
They're good.
They're really good.
Oh, they're good. I said that 2 weeks ago. I told Rob, I was like, oh, that guy, they're good.
And honestly, I'm really excited for UNLV because Barry Odom took him to a pretty good level, and Barry's going to Purdue. And, Dan Mullen's kind of the opposite in terms of he's an offensive guy, right? He's what he kind of did with Dak Prescott before he went back to Florida. I mean, I'm excited. UNLV is going to have opportunity every year, the way it's formatted right now, to get a chance to go play in the college football playoff. It's going to be exciting for those schools.
And you know what? Brendan, talk about Arizona State, the Terry College of Business out there. 72,000 students.
Rob, I wasn't there for the 70. The Terry. Let me tell you what. No, it's a great campus.
You were there for, Brendan.
Look, it's a great campus, and it's at Sun Devil Stadium, and they get it on out there, and it's just it's a fun place to play football because in the winter it's not you can play year round. It's just a different environment, especially when you start going to UNLV, because you go to Vegas, and UNLV ain't on the strip, y'all. Like,
right.
You gotta take a little taxi out there, and you get a breath of what it's like to be out in Nevada, and what it's like to be, and as you kind of progress out west, I lived in Santa Monica, I've lived in LA, and I've been up to Oregon and all those other states, and I've been to Duck Stadium. So, I'm excited because like I said, I grew up with that football. I saw that football. There's tradition there. And I think, it's obvious. The Domers get all the love because they got the contracts. The SEC gets all the love because ESPN, right? Yeah. Everything, everything's got to come out of the Northeast because that's like, the news central. So we're going to get all of our Northeast schools up there. We see all that stuff. But now we're going to see it all because Dan Mullen, and I really love Dan Mullen. Not love him, but I love watching him coach because Urban Meyer always said, and last year when we interviewed him on our podcast, what we have here on the Best Fridays in Football, and Urban said, look, Dan Mullen and I figure out a way to go win without the best personnel on the field. Yeah. And they would strategize endlessly about it. Because they would run the read option, And they said that gave us the best opportunity to win. Now go watch what happens, because these coaches used to do this earlier in their careers. Now they're going to these teams again later in their careers.
True.
That's a flip, and we're going to see a different deal. Don't you think UNLV going to light it up? Because they're going to light it up, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun to watch.
Well, and these teams in California better get off their ass, because UNLV with Dan Mullen, say what you want about him recruiting, guys will come to him. Okay,
it's such a huge deal to me that he's out there. I mean, it is massive, because it's not that big of a football. I mean, it's big, but it ain't that. I mean, he wants to go make a change.
Well, Barry Odom went in there and won 10 games this year. That's a big damn deal. Like you say, UNLV's campus, it's not on the strip. I mean, you're not going to have Wayne Newton hanging out on the practice field like Snoop Dogg at Southern Cal, which would have been pretty fun for Calvin Hobbs to be out there. But you know, hey, I'll just say this one. I bet you neither one of y'all know who this is. If I could just get off of that LA freeway without getting killed or caught. Y'all know who sang that song? Jerry Jeff Walker.
I don't even know.
If I could just get off of that, look it up today. But look,
nope, I won't.
What's cool today is Dan Mullen, the guy can flat out coach, and he's also good at picking stocks too. He's a very smart guy.
Well, whatever. That's his wife.
Yeah.
Megan Mullen does the rest of that. He doesn't do that. Yeah. Megan's the smart one, bro.
But watch, Brendan's right, and Matt, you see it with what's going on out there at Oregon. Football is now a national game. Oregon is in your backyard. And all this, well, they're out on the West Coast. Let me tell you something. The guy that used to be a 2 or 3 at Alabama, he ain't waiting around to be developed. He's going to be starting on the other side of the line of scrimmage against you. You better be paying attention. Matt Dean, awesome. John Hartwell, exemplary, outstanding. Gary Harris, ditto. Brendan Martin, executive producer extraordinaire.
Who's having a party?
Who's
having a party? You having a party, Rob?
No, I don't know where
that is. It's almost got a party. I'm not invited. I'm sure
that's
coffee.
Dan Mullen in the background.
That's Megan Mullen right there.
It looks like he's on the show today. But
Dan, he's my boy. Yeah. My most viral video ever was Dan Mullen. I shot him running onto the field for the first time as a Florida Gator head coach, and his face looked like he just pooped his pants. Well, and it was like literally the most viral video I've ever made.
He's an intense guy. I want to say real quick,
very strange.
Hello to Michael Lamb. He and his family have an incredible ministry down there in Birmingham that they're supporting some stuff that Audrey's doing up here with these kids and parking for Christmas. And all of you that have supported Audrey's Christmas Angels, God bless you, man. She has been wrapping presents like one of Santa's elves, and she's doing it all herself. But for everybody that donated to the cause, cannot thank you enough. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We are the greatest country in the history of the world, but the only easy day was yesterday. We will see you tomorrow. Got a great show in store. Matt Dean, I'm looking forward to coming over there and eating lunch with you in the next few days or next week in that cafeteria with all those coaches that come over there, because they're my kind of people. They're great Americans. Love it.
God bless you guys. Time to roll. We'll see you next week.
Good night, John Boy.
All right, we're still going for next year in 2025. We're going to work on how to say goodbye, Rob, because I love you and I think you're just like my father. But I could never get him out of a damn room. Dad, it's time to go home. Stop. Show's over, Rob. Show's over.
That's a wrap.
Show's over. Go see Buddy Martin tonight.
Hey,
Buddy Martin
is that a blue jean jacket you got on right there?
Blue jean? What? That's my duster.
Like what size do you wear?
Look at this duster.
Yeah, I see it. Are you a large or XL?
For what?
For jackets like that.
I'm 6'4", Rob. What do you think?
Double XL.
Look at this. That's my duster.
I
got my pants on. I'm ready for my boots.
Here we go. All right.
Hey, check us out tomorrow. Same time, same bat station.
Same bat
Rob,
channel.
I'll talk to you later.
All right.
I'm sure we talk all day.
We will.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for everything.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people that help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.